Hi, a very good evening, and I welcome all of you at webinar from estimation to forecasting with Kanban by Masa. I would like to thank Masa for joining us today. So let's get started. So let's get
Um,
started with the agenda for the day. So we'll start with a small introduction about the Lean Kanban India 2018 conference. We'll talk about the logistics. I'll give you a brief about the Masa. Then I'll hand over control to Masa to talk on from estimation to forecasting with Kanban, and then hopefully we'll have a great Q&A, question and answer. So introduction to Lean Kanban India 2018. Lean Kanban India, under the umbrella of Lean Kanban in USA, operating its flagship conference for more than 4 years in the country. It has been a vital platform for further the foundation of the Kanban method, bringing the teaching of Agile alternate path to agility to professionals across the country. It has helped shape perspective of some of the most important executives and entrepreneurs in strengthening their business and organizations. As a community, it has also incorporated feedback to get better and stronger each year. The conference has been attended by over 600 participants from 10 plus countries, and some of the most important global thought leaders within the community have participated in the speaking and sharing their knowledge. So logistics. So I would request you to please use a LAN cable for joining this webinar. Wi-Fi connection are unstable. Use high quality speakers or headphones. Please keep your microphones muted. All the questions will be taken via Q&A chat box. You can drop all your questions in chat box. So Masa K Maeda. Masa is one of the most esteemed and globally renowned expert on lean agile transformation. He carries a global consulting experience of over 26 years and has worked to transform and bring value to organizations all over the globe, including Fortune 500 companies, Silicon Valley, startups, and businesses of all shapes and sizes. He is also one of the founding member of a Lean Kanban in University and is the creator of a serious leap, a lean agile model built towards making organization prosperous. He currently operates as a CEO and founder of Value Innova. So over to Masa.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction. Hello, everybody. Um, Hopefully you can hear me. Okay, let's get into topic. What I want to indicate is that um, this is more of a teaser to invite you guys to attend the conference. I'm going to touch just a couple of points. Obviously, during the conference, there's going to be a lot more detail and more depth into this and many other topics. But anyway, so let's just get started. So we all know, what estimation is all about. We also know that most of the times managers and executives don't use estimation the right way. So there's this tendency of instead of considering an estimation as what it is, which is just an approximation, it's just a point of reference, and instead of using it that way, there's this strong tendency to just take it as a fact. Now, this is exactly what is going to happen. This is what we expect, and don't dare change these numbers, right? Don't dare not accomplish these deadlines, and so on. And of course, that's wrong. That's not the right way to look at this. So now, why does that happen? And basically, the point is that there isn't enough information. Actually, sometimes there just isn't any information in reality. And how reliable is that information? So, although the ideal case will be to understand that what really matters at the end of the day is the successful delivery of value, and therefore we should focus on that, there is still a very strong emphasis on other parameters which are proxy variables, such as a deadline. So in order to tackle that, different tools have been developed. We have planning poker, we have t-shirt sizes, buckets. So there's a set of different tools that are being used. And yes, they have been useful. They have provided some value, but it's still not good enough. So the point is that at the end of the day, the customer isn't going to be very happy. They're going to be unsatisfied, and they're going to wonder, how come we can't, do this in a better way? So the question is that really the best we can do? I mean, we have to just make wild guesses, or do we have to use these tools? And is that the end of it? Is there anything else? And the answer is no. There is that isn't the end of the rope. There's more things that we can actually do. And fortunately for all of us, Kanban has certain tools that help us. So I'm going to start talking about the cumulative flow diagram, mainly because it's a tool that almost everybody knows about, and that is actually rather easy to visualize, although not necessarily as easy to generate or to understand. So we all know that the cumulative flow diagram is a way to see how much work it is that we are bringing into our system, and most importantly, how much work are we actually getting done. And it's just a very simple mapping, so we can look at our Kanban board and we can see how, the mapping is from left to right. Each column of my process is one color on the diagram from left to right. Now, what is important to see here is, what does this mean in terms of, the different elements. I'm going to try to zoom the screen. Hopefully, you guys will be able to see that. So basically, what we see is the vertical axis is going to indicate how many tasks or how many items do we have in progress at a given time for each one of those columns. The horizontal axis is going to indicate to us what's the amount of time that it takes to get that amount of work done. And that's what we call the cycle time. So we can obviously calculate that for everything, the entire board, or for each column of the board. So we can select, what we want to look at. At the same time, we can see at what rate we are starting to do some work and at what rate we are finishing work. Of course, this can be done for the entire board again, or for just some portions of the same. So anyway, so once we have that, we can do some forecasting. And this is because obviously we understand that this rate of input and output of work that we want to get done and actual value delivered changes over time. We can actually create a line that shows us that based on that rate of value generated over time, how things look in the future. So they might look better, they might look not so good, but this allows us to be able to provide the customer with an expectation that is realistic based on the way the team is actually performing. This forecasting, we have to be careful about how we do it because of variation. On the one hand, we know that a project throughout its lifetime, it follows typically what is known as an S-curve. And what that means is that at the beginning of the project, things are a little slower. We're getting some things ready. We're installing some of the servers, preparing the infrastructure, and so on. And we're just getting started with what we need to do. gradually we start, getting more flow, more liquidity, and then we increase the rate as to how much work we can get done. Towards the end of the project, it's just some final, probably some tests that need to be done, some final checking, some minor issues that need to be taken care of, and so on. So things slow down also a little bit. So what we had to be careful is that we had to be sensitive as to where we are in the project so that we can then consider the right range of the diagram to be able to do this forecasting. For example, in this case, what we see is that the gray area on the right-hand side is that forecast. And that forecast is telling us that the current throughput is 0.84 cars, so it's less than 1 car. And the cycle time is 13.1 days. So this tells us how this team is performing. Of course, and something that is very important, this is not going to tell us why things are happening. It doesn't tell us why the throughput is 0.84. It doesn't tell us why the cycle time is 13.1. What is important is that it is a way for us to see what is happening, to then go and find out why it is happening. So we had to do root cause analysis inside the board and outside the board. So we had to go and talk to people and understand what the situation is and why it is as it is, and see then how we can improve this. Now, the throughput is another way to look at this, and what it tells us is, how much flow is happening over time. And what we can see here in the case of this particular project, we see that at the beginning it was rather slow. There wasn't much going on. Then it's like ramping up, and then it's like going down again, and then it looks like a roller coaster. It goes up and down, up and down. And it will be not a very good idea to just jump into conclusion by looking at the chart. So we had to understand what's going on. And in this particular case, this is a new project. It's actually a very challenging project for a customer in the banking industry. And at the beginning of the project, this was the setup. They were still getting some infrastructure in place. They had to finish, getting in alignment with other teams and so on. So it was rather slow. Then there was a ramp up, and this ramp up was because the initial work that needed to get done was to be able to actually get going with everything else. So there were a lot of small tasks that were able to get done, and then the actual work started. So really, this right-hand side of the chart, after this April 9 date, this is actual value generation. And the difference between the first 3 bars and then the other ones, which is when it starts looking like a roller coaster, is because the team realized that the periodicity they were setting, so they decided to work on a cadence instead of just continue flow. So they say, let's establish a certain amount of time within which we're going to be flowing and then deliver. And what they realized is that periodicity, which was originally a 2-week periodicity, wasn't working. So they decided to change it to 3 weeks. And then what we are seeing here is that the lower bars are what we call drops. And basically what we're doing is, although yes, there is continuous flow of tickets and there's testing going on in a continuous basis, there are certain moments along the time when there's a formal delivery or some value that needs to be validated, and that's that small bar. And then the long bar is the actual delivery to the customer. And this is because what we identified is that to the customer is a lot better to have an expectation as to when we're going to be delivering value, although we are generating it, every single day. And this allows the customer to actually schedule his own time to go and look at what is being generated and then accept it. The good news here is that we can see how the amount of value that was generated and delivered increase. So again, we expect this to continue that tendency, and as the team improves. So it's important to be able to understand how this works. Now, one other important aspect is there is a difference between a forecast on how we are currently doing and to know what it is required to be able to keep up with the current pace. And this is important. So what we can see on this chart is that we have on the forecasting side of the diagram, we see that there are two. One of them is gray, the other one is green. And what we can see is that there's a difference between one and the other. And what this is telling us is, we're required to have throughput of 0.69, which will give us a cycle time of 15.94 days. And the current is actually 0.84 with a cycle time of 13.1 days. So what this is telling us is that actually there's an improvement in the value flow. And this is good news. And obviously, that is something that we have to see what the actual behavior is over time, what the actual delivery is of value, to see if it was according to that forecast or not. And again, it will be too early to jump into conclusion. This is just how things are looking. This can be communicated to the team. Communicating to the customer will probably not be a good idea just yet. We have to see how behavior, what the actual results are, and then this could be hopefully good news towards the customer. At the same time, there's a human factor in this, and it is if the leader communicates to the team or is visible to the team, they can realize themselves, how they are doing, and that encourages them to actually perform even better. So there's always a human factor behind these kind of projections. One other aspect that is important with Kanban is that we know that we have to be careful as to, how we do work in terms of how much work we actually take to get done in a certain moment. And we understand that the more work we put on our plate to do at a certain time, we're going to get ourselves into more trouble. So we have to be very careful. And what we're seeing here is an example based on a game. Oh, I'm sorry, let me go back. Based on a game. And what we see here is that if we have one batch of work, and that batch of work consists of 12 tasks, it is going to take a certain amount of time. And here we have a table with 5 teams doing the work. And we see that it takes them a certain amount of time. If we take the exact same amount of time, but what we do is actually split that amount of work into 2 in such a way that the team works on one half first, and when they finish, they work on the other half, we will see that the amount of work, the amount of time that it takes to get the same amount of work done is going to decrease. And what we're going to see is that as we split that amount of work into smaller batches, the amount of time that it takes to get things done is going to continue decreasing up to a certain point. And in this particular exercise, there's a really good example, because if we look at the chart on the right, we will see how in the case of team 5, the shortest stack actually took them longer than the previous one. And this is important because there is obviously a limit basically we can end up making the amount of work to get done at a given time in terms of how much I have on my plate so small that it actually starts taking me more time. And the reason for that is because the difference between one task and another. So it can be that in any case, one task can take a little bit more or a little bit less than another one, and the difference in the amount of work that I have in progress is so small that it doesn't make a significant difference. That's, looking at it from the methodology standpoint. But if we look at it also from the human side of things, from the human factor standpoint, what happens is when the amount of work at a given time is very small, it tends to flow so fast that people start stressing out. And once stress starts going up, obviously it's not sustainable. And also quality starts suffering again. So the quality decreases, stress increases, and that ends up resulting in also more time to get things done. So we have to take both into account. But anyway, so if we understand that it is better to take work in small chunks rather than large chunks, then what we can see is that we can actually do a forecast with that. And that forecast can be, in this case, is also taking as reference a cumulative flow diagram. And what we can see is that, for example, let's say that we have a team doing certain amount of work and there's some pressure, be it for a deadline or some other reason, but we want the team to be able to increase its flow. And obviously, what most managers do is let's either, bring more work, you guys have to work harder, or let's bring more resources. And we know that there's a limited in the capacity of a team to be able to effectively generate and deliver value. So increasing the amount of work to do is a double-sided sword. It can be done, but it could also get us into a lot of trouble. So for example, if we look at this diagram, we see how here we have a forecast that tells us for this team, the way they have been working, if they continue working in this way, they can work up to 11.95 cards with a throughput of 0.4 cards per day. So they will finish half a card per day. And if they do that, their probability to finish all the work they need to get done in 30 days from now is 100%. However, if we say, okay, guys, you have to work harder, we're going to add more work to you, and we actually start adding work, and we get, for example, to 30 cards on the board with a throughput of 1 card per day, the probability of finishing that amount of work in 30 days is only 31.3%, which means we're getting everybody into trouble. We are obviously fooling the customer by providing this kind of, an unrealistic expectation. And at the same time, the team is going to stress out, the quality is going to go downhill, is not sustainable. They might really try to work this amount of work during that period of time, but at the end of the day, they're going to be so tired that after these 30 days, their performance is going to decrease. So what we have to make sure is that we bring a sense of urgency and we motivate the team to excel and to increase its throughput within what is reasonable. And in this case will be, you guys, based on the way you work today, the maximum you can actually achieve is this amount. If they are under this bar, then yes, we can bring a sense of urgency to the team so that they actually step up and get more work done. and still within the probability of 100%. Now, opportunity for improvement always exists. Doing root cause analysis helps improve these numbers. Something that I do when necessary is if we are at about the limit, which is a comfortable, sustainable pace, I talk to the team and I ask them if we can actually increase our effort up to 10%. And most of the time, the team says, "Okay, yes, we can do it," and they can do it without all the drawbacks of increasing the amount of work and such. So 10% is a comfortable number to actually push the team a little bit extra. So think about like a sports coach. He's training somebody, and this person is doing push-ups, and he's getting to the limit, and the coach says, one more, you can still do it, and the person gets to do one more. So it will be something similar. So what happens when we do that? Well, there's another way to do forecasting, and is by looking at the probability based on lead time distribution. And basically, this diagram is also generated based on the actual performance of the team. So it's based on what they can actually really do. So what this is showing us is that if we have one item of time tare, T-A-R-E, this will be the distribution. And what this tells us is you have 100% probability of finishing in about 15 days. But if you try to finish, for example, in 5 days, your probability is around 0.65. And this also allows us to be able to do some estimation. For example, using the exact same data, let's say that the team finished working and we have a new project, and we're going to use the same team on that same project. And this project is similar to the one we were working on before, and we say that the scope of this project is as it is on the upper left side. So we have certain tickets, 3 tickets of this kind, CNSL, 9 of TARE, and 3 2 requirements. And the customer wants to know how long is it going to take us to get that project done. So instead of using our planning poker or t-shirt size estimation, or just asking the person or the team how long they think it's going to take them to get something done, what we can do is use these these metrics. And basically what this is telling us is that if the same team works on this project, which is very similar to the one we used as a basis for this estimation, and this is the scope, is telling us that the probability of finishing the entire project is around 100 days. Okay, it will be close to 100%. So the thing is, what if we tell the team, okay, guys, it was a sustainable pace, it was comfortable, you were working well. Do you think you can actually put 10% more effort on this project? And let's say the team says, absolutely no problem, 10% isn't something that is going to get us into any trouble, we can do it. Then what we can see is that a 90% probability implies finishing in 70 days. And to a customer will be a lot more attractive if we tell him we're getting this done in 70 days instead of telling him it's going to get done in 100 days, for example. At the same time, one other trade, which is something that I advise to my customers quite often, is if you are consistent with your teams, you have good discipline, in your organization, such that we can use something like this. Then what you can do is you can generate a table where you indicate for different kinds of projects how long it takes to the team to get it done. and then you give that to your customers together with the pricing. So what is going to happen is that the customer will know, without having to consult, for a given project of a certain kind, how long it will take to get it done. And not only that, there's something even better, which also has to do with the human side of things. If we give that to the customer will know, and therefore he will tell us on time about the project. And this is important because oftentimes, more often than not actually, customers have a need, and instead of working on that need and then asking for it to a provider or to their organization that generates and delivers value, they wait. They say, okay, yeah, we need to get this done. Yes, we have to, but okay, let's do it tomorrow or next week. And next thing you notice, 2, 3 weeks, a month, or 2 months passed by, and then they request for that project or that deliverable when it's already too late, or they're just like borderline, and that starts getting everybody into trouble. Whereas if they have this table, they will know and they will plan accordingly, so that basically they help us help them and vice versa. So this actually generates a healthier relationship between the customer and the organization. One other thing that I encourage my customers to do is that table actually includes financial and economic incentive. For example, telling the customer, if you let us know about the project well in advance so that we can start, comfortably within this range of time, then we'll give you a discount. And obviously, that's an amazing incentive for the customer to be careful about this. And basically, what this does, it just makes life easier for everybody, and and the possibility to finish a project successfully increases. Now, so there's one other aspect on this diagram that I didn't mention. So there are these blue lines, and this has to do with the lead time distribution. And the lead time distribution, we can see it here. And as we know, there is like the main curve, and there are outliers, okay? And a healthy lead time or cycle time distribution is when we have most of the work being done in less time rather than more time. So if it is more loaded towards the left, as in this case, that's a more desirable behavior compared to having a heavy load in the middle or towards the right. At the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that this team is working in a healthy way. But, so what will be the important thing to do in this case? Well, we see that there are some tasks that are taking more than 20 days to get done, and it's actually quite a few. So the important point here is, what can we do? What is it that we are not doing that we should do, or vice versa? What is it that we're not doing that we should do, that such that this part of the curve starts moving to the left, so that we are able to get more work done in less time. And that's what we had to go and find out. Do we have the right WIP limits? Are we understanding well what we had to do? Are we granularizing the tasks well enough? There's a good work done with the customer prior to actually doing the work, and so on. So we had to go and find out and do the root cause analysis. At the same time, we had to go and figure out what happened, such that these tasks took so long. For example, this one here took over 80 days, the one on the right-hand side. So why was it? What was that special situation that motivated for that behavior? Was it an internal variation, or was it an external variation? And what can we do about it so that this doesn't happen again, or it takes less time? So it's important to be able to use this. Again, remember that the Kanban board is not going to solve your problems. The quantification is going to solve your problems. They just they just make it easier for you to realize that something is happening, and then you have to go find out. And obviously, when you have forecasting, then that's even better, because then you can actually plan accordingly and take action on time. And if we do that, and as we continue doing that, then the customer is going to get happier and happier. So that's all I have for you guys. Are there any questions? Okay, if anybody's typing a question while you guys do that, I just want to indicate in the conference, I'm going to give a talk that is related to this topic. I'm going to go more in depth. I'm going to show other quantification, and I'm going to contextualize it by showing you some actual cases that I have worked with customers.
So for your kind information, Masa is coming to the conference as a speaker, and he's conducting one of the workshop as well during the conference, and I think it would be very, very interactive. So I hope to guys see you at the conference as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys there.
Any question, guys? Okay, so thank you so much, Masa, for for your for this great presentation and sharing this detail with us. And I hope I'm looking forward to see you at the conference as well. And thank you so much all the participants for joining us today. And have a great day ahead.
All right. Thank
Yes,
you so much,
the
guys.
slides will be available. Yeah, the Meghna is asking the question, will the slides will be made available? Yes, the slides will be made available. I'll share the details over an email. And the YouTube videos also uploaded on the YouTube. You can subscribe to our channel, which is Lean Kanban India. All the videos will be get uploaded there. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Masa.
Thank you. Look forward to meeting you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.